Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to this amazing live show of Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm so lucky. How lucky am I? Because I get to be here with all of you and with the amazing Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Good morning, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Good morning, Shannon, and good morning, everyone. It's good to be here.
It
I wish I
is,
was there with you in person. Maybe next week we'll be
yes.
ready for that.
The reality is that you're just down the hall from me, which is crazy, but we're working on the lighting. And so we're getting the new studio set up. And so, yeah, hopefully next week we'll have it all ready for you and we can sit here together, which will be super fun. But we're so thrilled to be able to be here with all of you today. I have to say the date, it is the 10th of June 2025, and we're saying happy birthday to our lovely friend Rachel Bird, a very good friend of the
Oh,
show, Kobe Bird's mom.
happy birthday, Rachel. How
Yes.
lovely.
But thrilled to be here with you guys this morning live. Got a great topic that we're talking about with Dr. Granpeesheh. If you're new to the show, let me just tell you that Dr. Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. I believe the expert of our time because her vast knowledge, which comes from over 40 years of experience working in this field, coupled with her intelligence and heart when it comes to dealing with the challenges that are faced by not only the people who are on the spectrum themselves, but their families as well, and having a wonderful perspective of looking at these individuals as whole people and individuals. It just sounds so crazy that we have to convince people to look at people as individuals, but you've been doing that for over 40 years, and bless you because you've changed so many lives, mine and my sons and my family's included, Dr. Granpeesheh. So we're thrilled that we have this time with her that she can answer your questions. The chat is open right now. You can be asking questions. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and a bunch of other places. Our wonderful Chris Desmond, who is working miracles on a daily basis, he's starting to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with the show. Don't forget that Ask Dr. Doreen has its own YouTube channel. And you can tune in there and check out old questions that people have asked about old topics. We've done over 14 years worth of shows, which is just amazing. I can't believe we're still making it work. From now our fourth studio since we started this. But, right? Fourth studio. This
Yeah,
is the,
yes, I was just thinking that. So one, two, yeah, that's right.
this is
Fourth
the,
studio, amazing.
yes. And I think this is the last one I have in me. I think this might be it. This is home forever. But I also want to tell you that we know that most of you, you're so busy and you're on the go, and that you are listening in podcast, and we love that too. I do want to say to the people listening in podcast, if you ever want to see what we look like, head over to the YouTube channels that you could see what's going on. It's a different kind of fun, but we love you listening in podcast. We want you to know that it's been a priority of ours to make this information available to the world on a regular basis and to make it so that it's free to you. So it's a free download wherever you get your podcasts. However, it will come with advertising. And I hope that you embrace that, knowing that that's what we need to do to make it free to you. However, if that doesn't fit with your listening modality, if you want to get it ad-free, you can. It's a small fee, $5 a month. You head over to glow.fm/autism live. For $5 a month, you get everything we do at the Autism Network, including Ask Dr. Doreen. So it shows up in your inbox and it's free of ads. $5 a month. You really can't beat that. Good price if that's what you need. Okay, I got all that out of the way because I want to talk with Dr. Granpeesheh and I want her to answer your questions. Our starting topic today is about travel and summer travel, success with summer travel, especially when we have anxiety on board. And we know that you are an expert in this field, both the traveling and the anxiety. You do both well, really well.
I don't know that I do it well, but I do a lot of travel, that's for sure, yes.
I think you do it well. From where I'm sitting, you do it well. Okay, I'm going to jump right in with questions, but the chat is open. For those of you who are watching and listening live, you have the ability to write in at any point, and you do not have to write in a question about the topic. You can write about anything. We just have that as a jumping off point. So, Dr. Doreen, thank you for all your help over the years. My son is now 8 and doing really well. He is doing so well that this year we're going on a vacation to Disney World. It has been 4 years since we last went on a vacation. That time was a disaster. He ended up not pooping for 11 days, and we had to go to the hospital because he was so impacted. I really don't want to have a repeat of that. I feel like he may just automatically do better this time, but what can I do to help him be successful? Great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. And I wouldn't have thought necessarily, Shannon, about the physical stuff that you get ready for, but yeah, that's a very good one. So, okay. So I think we need to start by just thinking of travel as something that causes a little bit of disruption in routine, obviously. And so then you have to think of all the different things that come with a disruption of routine, right? And so they can be physical things or mental things. And a lot of times, obviously, it's going to involve anxiety, which is a very common response to change. So I guess I would start by saying, what are the physical things we have to prep for, and what are the mental things we have to prep for? So let's talk about physical things first. So if your child is someone who has any kind of physical issue that might be in some way affected by a disruption of routine, then we have to prepare for it. GI issues obviously are one. A lot of people have issues with constipation when they travel. So obviously, if you're concerned that that might happen, you would want to make sure you have preparation. For instance, you have stool softeners with you. You do not allow your child to eat a lot of carbs, or you make sure that they're hydrated. You take magnesium supplements with you. All of these things will help make sure that air travel, particularly, or going to places that have new food, are not going to result in problems with the gastrointestinal system. You could also experience sleep issues, which is a very, very common thing when we travel, particularly when you're looking at changes in time zones. So, of course, something that's very helpful with travel sleep issues is melatonin. I know a lot of our kids are sometimes will take melatonin. So, whatever you do, whether it's a sleep mask or melatonin or any other type of thing that might be calming for your child, you want to make sure you think about that before you travel. And then what I do usually with my kids who are now adults, but I still do this, is I will just have some basic first aid, I guess, and not just first aid medications with me, but things like Benadryl in case someone is exposed to something allergic, or the various, frequently taken medications like maybe anti-inflammatories like Advil, or painkillers like Tylenol. You just want to have a little bit of that kind of stuff with you when you travel just to be safe. I think in terms of physical issues, I can't think of any others, Shannon. I'm not sure if you can think of other physical issues that might come with travel. But obviously, there are a lot of mental issues that come. And um, as we all know, our kids have a tendency to depend more on routine. And so when their routines are disrupted, it becomes a very, very dysregulating type of experience for them. So as a parent, I think whatever you can do to establish the same routine, or at least any other type of routine right away, is going to be helpful. So for example, if you have a routine at home where you have dinner at a certain time, and then you have a certain amount of play or free time after dinner, and then you have time for sleep, and sleep is associated with you reading a book for the child first, or whatever the routine is, right? Taking a bath, etc. Some of that stuff you'll be able to replicate no matter where you go, right? So maintain those routines. If there's a bath time before the sleep time, do it. If there's a story to be read, do that. If and other things might change. Like, for example, you might not be able to have dinner at home. You'll be going out for dinner. So you want to think of your itinerary, I guess, and think of all the things that are going to be outside the routine, that are slightly new or require a little bit of practice. We often talk about kind of rehearsing these things that our kids have to get used to. So any kind of practice that you can do before you go to this new environment, any kind of, just write down what your schedule is going to be and mentally prepare yourself and say, okay, he's gonna be fine during this phase. This might be difficult because we're going to be on a bus for an hour, whatever it is. And these are the ways I can occupy him during that time. Then the next activity is going to be okay. Then he'll probably become tired and we might not have a place for a nap. So I'll have to make sure we have a quiet space that we can go to a park or something. If you go through the days of the travel like that and mentally prepare and have activities associated with it, you should be okay. Now, it just so happens that this parent is talking about an environment that is very overstimulating, Disney World, right?
Yeah.
So you just want to make sure that, and a lot of our kids will enjoy a lot of things at Disney World, obviously, but they can also easily get overstimulated. So I really recommend that you take some noise canceling headphones with you. Perhaps you look at the map of Disney World and you schedule yourself in a way that you're not overwhelming. It's not too long of a day. Maybe get a hotel if you can that's really nearby in case you need to go somewhere quiet. Look at the map and find the places that are calm places. There are a lot of green areas that you can retreat to. Just make sure you're not overpacking the day with things because you just want to do everything, right? And then just go with it and see how things go. But as much as you can, prepare ahead of time for these types of things. I think I might have hopefully covered most of the things. Shannon, can you think of anything else?
Yeah, well, the only thing, because it's Disney World, and Disney has a very specific process that before you leave on the trip, you notify them that you're coming on whatever days you're coming with somebody on the autism spectrum. They will make arrangements for you. You'll get a guest assistance pass, and they'll walk you through how you do that, which helps with the long lines. But I always love, I don't know if it's the same in Disney World as it is in Disneyland, but in Disneyland, they have something that's called it's Carnation. It's sponsored by Carnation, but it's like the place where you go. It's a very quiet space that it's air conditioned. When my son was little, it was our favorite place to go. It's a place where you can go to nurse or bottle feed or change an infant. And we have gone in there when we needed a quiet space.
That's
Now,
great.
if your child has already escalated to the point of a tantrum and is being loud, that might not be the place. It might be too late for that. But if you can take quiet, they'll let you go in and sit and rock your even older child, and as long as it's relatively quiet. Mm-hmm. So that can be a really good space to just sort of plan that we're going to circle back to. Disneyland and Disney World are huge. But if you look at the map, you can do a land and cycle back to the middle, and that's usually where it is. And I love that place. I love that place. I have great memories of that place. But I also think when talking about, because we've seen a lot of our kids that were, maybe they were working with somebody that didn't plan for generalization, Dr. Granpeesheh, so they really, anytime they go any place that's not home, they don't feel comfortable pooping in a hotel, on a plane, whatever. So maybe if you could take a minute to talk about what you can do to help generalize toilets before the vacation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the best way to generalize is to just go to other places, right? And practice before the trip so that you can maybe go to other people's homes or public spaces so the child gets more comfortable. But I think what's really helpful is if you have activities for your child when they go to the new location, and that you have helped so for instance, use of an iPad can be done on the toilet or in a hotel room toilet. And also things like making sure that your child is adequately rewarded for going to the bathroom. So I think those are some of the things you can do. But yeah, it becomes an issue of practice, right? Any of these things, if you have the time right now to practice generalizing to different environments, practice anything that's going to be out of the ordinary, it's always going to help make things better.
Wonderful. I want to move on to the next question. We are going on a short camping trip with our ASD diagnosed 4-year-old. He has some very rigid rituals, and this is the first trip where he will be around his cousins. We are only going for the weekend so that he doesn't miss his therapies, which I really applaud this parent for prioritizing that. I know it's hard when family is saying, that we're all getting together, but I love that she's found a way to go for the weekend and still get back for therapies. She says, but I'm worried about what to do if he melts down when he can't have his usual bedtime rituals. Everyone is in the cabin together, and I won't have a lot of options to take him to a quiet place. What do you suggest?
Yeah, so again, I think it becomes so stressful for parents because your focus changes to trying to make it, our focus as parents is usually how do I make things easier for my child? And then when you're engaged with a large group family, now your focus is how do I make it okay for my child, but at the same time, okay for the entire family. And I think you should really start by having a very candid conversation with the family and asking for their help. Like, let's just start there and say, I want to come to this and I'm really excited about this, but I'm going to need everyone's support and help in making this happen. And you'd be surprised at how people will come up with ideas to help make this a possibility for you. The issue of sleeping in a room with lots of other kids, I think the only way that that can be managed is if with the permission of all the other parents, like there is a quiet time established for all the kids before they sleep. You can certainly, of course, also, use the soundproof headphones. There are really wonderful sleep masks. If you can get your child to wear one of them, get them used to it. When I travel, I don't think I could function without my earbuds and my sleep mask. Like they really do help me shut down when I need to. But I think you need to share your concerns ahead of time with the family, and just ask for the things that you need. For instance, a quiet space or a routine established. You might be surprised. The rest of the family might also want their kids to interact and engage in some sort of routine at night.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to say that some families are great and some families will rise to the occasion. Some families do not.
Yes,
Some
absolutely.
families cannot. And so I feel for this family if they have one that cannot. But I also, I'm imagining if they're in a cabin that somewhere there are cars parked outside as well. And that, because I'm always looking for where is the quiet retreat place where your child is not being judged. And if worse comes to worse, going and sitting in the car and reading a book or listening to some music quietly for a half hour. And if your family gives you a hard time, you know, then it's good that you're only going for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and
I'm
I
so
guess
cynical.
no, you're absolutely right, Shannon. But for me, I don't. I think I have always prioritized my own kids and my own needs. And if there's family who's going to be judgmental or not helpful to the process, I just don't hang out with them.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest, that it's not that important to me. For what's more important to me is my child's comfort and my own stress level. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of like you have to protect that beyond everything else, I think.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Parents already have enough on their plates to add something else like worrying about family members.
Absolutely. I agree with that. It's a push me pull you though, right? Because
Yeah.
you want the whole thing. You want your child to be accepted by the family, but and in the best case scenarios they will be. And I do agree with you. I think it's worthwhile to ask for their help and support. if you don't get it, then at least you can say, but I tried,
Mhm.
right? Instead of feeling like, oh, maybe if I had shared with them, whatever. But I agree with you. Those are people if they can't get on board, then you don't prioritize spending the time with them. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's that Ileana Vincent thing, heal yourself.
Yes.
Right? Okay. I am traveling abroad with my 14-year-old son and noticing how rigid he is. He got very upset about something I did that he felt was inappropriate. I complimented one of our waiters on the cruise we are on, and it became such a thing that we literally lost 2 days of the trip to a meltdown. I am wondering if the reaction was partially sensory overwhelm, or was he really that upset with what I did? I feel like I need to walk on eggshells and that he is way overactivated. Is there a way to save this vacation? It is something he has been looking forward to forever.
That's a deep one, right? And
Yeah.
I want to be very careful how I respond to this because I don't know exactly what the conversation was and what may have offended him. I'm not, so I guess I'll try to throw all my thoughts out. My initial thought is I'm not sure, depending on what you actually said in regards to the compliment to the waiter, I'm not sure that it's appropriate for your 14-year-old to be that judgmental about it. And I always look at all of our kids the same way I would look at a typically developing kid, which is part of my job as a parent and as a teacher, I guess, is to educate all of my kids in regards to what's appropriate and what's not appropriate because I really want them to fit into society well and know the rules of society. So I don't know if how I feel about, or I don't know how to respond because to begin with, like, unless you said something very, very inappropriate, then I think this might be an opportunity for your son to learn that what you say is not for him to judge. And also, what you say is not necessarily about him or a reflection on him. It's your choice how you interact with the world. So, all of those types of things, I guess, would be appropriate lessons for now. But I can also understand that you're in the middle of a trip and it has turned into this kind of thing where it just has caused 2 days of grief, which I also don't know how that has come about. In other words, is he now treating you poorly? Is he now not willing to talk to you anymore? I guess I don't know enough detail about how things have turned around. But I think it is probably important for you to try to salvage it, even for yourself. Um, for our kids, sometimes we try very hard to, have them learn to turn things around faster. But everybody goes at their own pace, and ultimately, this will be a lesson for him in his life. And, he will go through whatever process he needs to go through before he can move on from it. I It's hard for me to respond to this, Shannon, because as a psychologist, there's 7,000 things I'm thinking, right?
Sure.
But I would be trying to see things from his perspective and understand exactly what it is that caused him this level of anger or resentment or embarrassment or whatever it is that is leading to a 2 day change in his process and his attitude and how he's experiencing life, and then you go from there. I just don't feel like I know enough to be able to give better advice in this case.
Sure, absolutely. It's funny because you were saying something and I kind of had a little bit of an epiphany because I have seen this kind of behavior with my now adult son. He travels and travels really well, and we travel a lot together now. But every once in a while, there will be, my son has a very heightened sense of justice, and rules. And if he sees somebody breaking a rule, and from the time he was little,
Yeah.
we've had to work through, yeah, but do you have control over that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I see that sometimes, and I'm thinking of the last two big trips we went on. We went to Utah and went through the Arches Park. And then, of course, with my husband, we went to Scotland last year. And in both trips, there was at least one day where something I did irritated him to the point where we were no longer having fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I can certainly relate to this, and then they get stuck. And I can only,
So that's great because you can help us understand that. So what was it? Do you think it was something you did that he felt embarrassed by?
well, I know when we were in Vegas, because you know me, I'm allergic to everything, and eating out is such a problem for me.
Right.
And so the thing that he got upset about was that we looked at the menu at a restaurant and I could see that there was nothing that I could eat. And so I said, let's not eat here, let's go and eat someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took like 5 restaurants. It was very hard for me to find a place to eat in Vegas. And so when we finally found a place, he was mad at me because he felt that I wasn't listening to him, that he wanted
Mm-hmm.
to really eat at that first restaurant. And he
Mm-hmm.
felt that I just dismissed it, and that we ended up eating someplace that wasn't good for him, that I was not listening to his needs, and that we were two people on vacation, and that my eating things just completely overrode, and that I was dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
And when he finally could say all that to me, when I finally was able to say to him, what's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
And he had the ability to language that and say, I don't feel like I'm on a vacation with you. I feel like you're on a vacation and you're worried about what you can eat and you're not taking me into consideration. Then I was able to go, I'm sorry. I was
Mm-hmm.
not being considerate of what your needs are.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have been able to eat in that restaurant. And he said, well, I thought that you could eat this. And I was able to explain to him why I couldn't eat that. And then he was like, okay, I just wish you would communicate more with me. And
Mm-hmm.
then we were able to repair and get on with the vacation. But until I really dug in,
Yeah.
I didn't know what the problem was. In
Right.
Scotland, it was that he felt that my husband and I were not paying attention and that we were going to get hit by a bus. Also, a reasonable concern. And he was like, I feel like I have to babysit the two of you. And why can't you get it
I
together?
love that.
Right? But he was mad for a good like half day
Mm-hmm.
before I pulled it out of him. What is your issue? It was a
Right.
little like dating. You know when you're dating and like somebody kind of turns off and you don't know what it is and you don't, but with your child, it's worth it to pull it out of them, I feel. Anyway, I don't know that this
Definitely
helps.
is. It definitely is. And I'm so happy that you have the relationship with James where you can actually openly talk about these things. And he, I think, very early on developed that ability to, it's self awareness, right? And
And
being
not every
able to
kid can.
communicate.
Yeah.
Pardon?
And not every kid can say
Not every
what's
kid
wrong.
can.
Yeah.
But also, I think that there are always, when you look at it, there's always additional lessons, kind of, which is, there does come a time where it's difficult for everyone to realize that when we choose social, which means other people, there's also a certain level of compromise. So I might choose to travel either with my friends or with my husband or with my kids, but I should realize that there's always going to be some level of compromise, and that level is going to be, those compromises are different if it's with friends or with my husband or with my kids, but that's being social, right? That's being with others. The alternative to never having to compromise is just going alone. So I think that is an important lesson too, so that we all go into these things realizing there's going to be a certain level of compromise. And I think the hardest is our kids, Shannon, because they're our kids, and there has been stages in their lives, particularly a child who has had a diagnosis of autism, is that you compromise a lot for that child. And so for them to realize that things have changed now is a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm also reminded of a time when my son was much younger, that he
Hmm.
was with me. We went to see a performance. I won't say the name of the person, but afterwards, you know, the we went backstage, and sometimes I say things before my brain connects with my mouth. And this person seemed so big on stage. They just seemed so larger than life. And we went backstage, and they are so tiny that
Hmm.
it was shock. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I forget how tiny you are." And I
Yeah,
meant it as a compliment. I really, 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 truly meant it as a compliment that your personality is so big
yeah,
on stage, and I forget how tiny you are. And to me, tiny is a compliment.
it
But
is. It's not a insult for sure. Yeah.
But my son was like, "That is so wildly inappropriate. What you just said to
Interesting.
her, I am appalled by your behavior." And he said that in front of her, and I said, "What? What did I? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it that way." And then, like, the whole ride home, it was like, you don't say those things, right? He was so stuck in being so mad at me that I didn't behave appropriately. And I
Yeah.
and I do think that that's maybe for him anyway. It is because we set up for him. This is what's appropriate. This is not what's appropriate. And
Yeah.
for him to see me do something that he felt was so wildly inappropriate, he got stuck in it for a while. And maybe that's a little bit what's happening with this waiter situation. I don't know what she said to the waiter,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And I think again, it's like, my kids also might sometimes think something that I'm doing is appropriate or inappropriate in the current world,
yeah.
right? Because the world also changes.
Yes.
But I've also, I think, gotten them to the point where they know that it's not appropriate for them to judge me, and or try to teach me. You know what I mean?
I want to
So
crochet that on a pillow.
it's just it's for me to learn at this age, and I will learn. And if they are embarrassed by it, that's their issue.
Yeah.
So those are the things I was saying. I just really, you can't make any kind of real meaningful response unless we know exactly what happened.
Okay.
But I do a lot. I think the examples you gave are very, very good examples of situations where it becomes uncomfortable for our kids for whatever reason. And I think it's really important to take those situations and teach our kids a little bit of self awareness so they can realize just what's going on in their own heads. How are they seeing this situation and how can they let go of it? It's not about what you did, it's about them holding on to something that really doesn't have much to do with them.
I agree. Okay, I want to move on to the next question. We're having to make a heartbreaking decision. My 17-year-old son is severely affected by autism.
Mm.
This summer, I am taking his brother, 16 and neurotypical, to visit prospective colleges. I have decided to leave my other son at a camp for disabled teens. We have visited, I have researched. It seems like a wonderful place, but I feel like a terrible parent for leaving him. And I don't even know if he will understand that I will come back for him. I guess what I want to know is that I'm doing the right thing, and is there anything I can do to help him to understand? My
Yeah,
heart breaks for this question, for this parent.
absolutely. It's a very, very, very difficult thing. I guess I will have two things to say about this. One is, yes, you can definitely practice it. So like you can leave him for a day and come back so that he knows you're coming back. You can give him lots of means of being in touch with you, or have the staff at the place give him the ability to be in touch with you through FaceTime. And you can also, one of the things I used to do when my kids were very young and I would travel a lot, because with very young kids, it's hard for them to understand the concept of, 3 days versus 12. So I used to give them a bag to open every night, um, for the number of nights that I was gone. And so I would literally, I had three kids, I'd go to 99-cent store and buy three toys per night. And I would wrap them up and put them in a bag. And the first bag was night one, night two, night three, night four. And when the bags were finished, I was back. right?
Right.
So that way they had a very fun activity and they knew how many days until I come back. And I think it something like that where you visualize and he has an idea of when you're coming back, I think would be very helpful, and you would have to practice it so he gets the idea. Um, but I also want to point out to you that you are being a good parent to your other son. And sometimes we forget that. I right now I have my two daughters are having both have needs, different needs. And sometimes it conflicts. I can only deal with one or the other. And there are times when one says to me, you give a lot of attention to the other. And you have to, as a parent, you are treating you have to make sure that you're not ignoring the 16-year-old who also needs a parent to go with them and look at colleges and not have to worry about the other son who is disabled. So just remind yourself when you have that guilt that you are also giving some time and attention to your other son, and sometimes that requires exactly what you're doing. So don't live in guilt. You're doing the right thing. I know it's very, very, very tough, but it's short, and you'll have to do it.
Amazing advice. Thank you. You reminded me, though, talking about how good you are at travel. I have heard the story from your youngest daughter about how when you used to take them on plane rides, that you would also, if it was a long plane ride, that
11-hour plane rides to Germany. Yes.
yes,
Oh
that
my gosh.
there would be things that were wrapped,
In
uh,
foil.
right, which you can't
In
do that
foil.
anymore. You won't make it through TSA with
You do,
tinfoil
you
wrap
do.
presents.
You'd be surprised that foil is fine to go through TSA.
Really? You can do foil?
Oh yeah, you can do foil. But the reason for foil is because if you wrapped it, it's harder to get it through TSA. Foil, they could just open and see what's in there. But basically, I tried to do whatever or plastic wrap, something that was hard, excuse me, for kids to open so that each one would take at least 5 minutes of occupied time. It's like all the things you have to do when you try. They were young, they were like, let's say 2 and 5 and 8, and I had them all, and it was just tough.
And so as you would fly at certain markers in the flight, you would give them a new toy to
Yeah,
unwrap. And as you said, it would take at least 5 minutes, and then they would have that toy to play with. And then when that
exactly.
wore off, you would get another toy that you had a bag of toys. I just think that's genius.
Yeah, and videos and like all kinds of nowadays, any plane you're on, they have kids programs
Oh
right
yeah.
on the monitors, which is so much easier. But I still, the other day I was cleaning out old stuff from the house, Shannon, and I found all these like little things. I don't even like there were like little Atari machines and things that I would take for travel. It's so funny the
Oh,
things we do.
it's so
And of
funny.
course now my kids are, my oldest just turned 30, so
That is incredible. That
yeah.
is, I remember the day that she was turning 16, and
Mhm.
you had this is what I remember. It's probably wrong, but a cherry red car for her when she turned 16.
Oh, right, right. It was her first car, yeah,
Yeah.
and she had to, a year after that or shortly after that, she could also drive her siblings when they
Yeah.
went to school. So that was like a big moment in all of our lives. It was like, yeah, we're getting Nikki a car and teaching her to drive as soon as possible.
I love that. But that's like probably, I think that's the first time that I met Nikki was on that day.
Oh, really?
Really amazing. And to think that she's 30 now, boy, the time flies. I want to say hi to Michelle, who's watching us live. And feel free, anybody, I have more questions, but if you guys have questions, please write in your questions. So this one, I meant to speak with someone in my family about this, and I didn't, so I don't know what I'm allowed to say. But the question is, I have three daughters, and my
Hmm.
middle one has recently been diagnosed on the spectrum. She is smart and funny and kind, but she has meltdowns that are epic. She also loves Harry Potter, and I have promised the kids a trip to Universal Studios. I know there is a wand show, and only one kid gets picked. How can I help her to deal with the big feelings that she will inevitably have if she is not picked?
Wow, did she write to the right person?
Yes, I know. I know, but I forgot to discuss it, and so I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
Right,
But
right.
so we'll speak in code. But I want to hear from you, first of all, because there are all kinds of amusement parks and there's all kinds of opportunities when our kids aren't chosen.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and, and they have the big feelings about it. So, how can a parent cope in that moment?
Yeah. And it's difficult, obviously, and there's lots of different things you can do to prepare. Including having buying some wands and making sure that you have kind of a concession prize if she doesn't get picked, so that afterwards she can have a different surprise. But you can also, I think, depending on your child's readiness level, we all get to a point where we have to learn to deal with loss, right? Or not being picked. And I think that's just practice and doing it to the point where we learn that we're not always going to be the winner. Being a graceful loser is probably one of the biggest lessons of life. It's probably one of the reasons that we enroll our kids in things like team sports and stuff, because learning to lose and to get up and keep going and try again is something that is probably one of the most important lessons of life in general. So that being the issue here, you can, I guess, model it through other things, right? So you can do games where someone loses and then they demonstrate how they can shrug it off and say, oh, that's okay, we can try it again another day, or that's okay, I won something else. Like lots of different ways to gracefully lose. And that would be your goal. And so that your child, by the time they get there, if they are not the one who gets selected, they're fine with it, right? And
Yeah.
they can handle it. At the same time, I think you can also try to, as Shannon said earlier, a lot of the parks have, you can tell them ahead of time what that your child has diagnosis, and that it would be ideal if they are able to participate in some way. Parks make a lot of accommodations for our kids nowadays, so that's a wonderful thing. And I do recommend also, because I've done that wonderful experience, but making sure that you go at a time when it's not very busy, because it can matter if it's more of a calmer atmosphere.
Yeah. I remember, we used to have the passes to go to Disneyland, and my child always wanted to be picked no matter what it was.
Right,
And he
right.
never was picked. He never was picked. And then I will be honest with you, we were talking to a Disneyland employee that we knew who said, here are the tricks. Here are the tricks to being chosen. First of all, they tend to pick kids that are standing real still, so practice. And so I remember standing in our living room practicing, okay, they're going to be going around and picking kids. You have to stand very still. How still can you stand? And you have to be looking right at them. And boy, it was like the best thing to work on eye contact because he was motivated. And
Yes.
the thing that he wanted to do, there was at that time, I don't know if they still do this, but there was a thing where they would, it was in I can't think what the part of it, but in Tomorrowland, there's a big restaurant there, and there are several times a day when Darth Vader and all of the other guys come out, and they're going to train people to be Padawans, and
Oh,
they
wow.
pick the little kids. So we had asked for the 411 on how do you get picked for that, and it was standing still and making eye contact and not moving while you were doing it. So we practiced the hey nani nani out of that, and I have video somewhere of him being picked, and it's hilarious because they go through this whole thing and they teach them like three moves, and then one by one they get to come up and they get to do one move with Darth Vader, and then they're scurried off the stage. And they put the little robe on them and everything. And so he, like a champ, he stood still and he made the eye contact and he got chosen. And we were like,
Okay.
this is the most amazing thing. We know the tricks. And then, of course, but he didn't understand the instructions.
Oh, I
And
see.
so he did the little moves, but then it was his time to go up, and they don't let the parents go anywhere near. They had no idea what they were dealing with. And so he went up, and Darth does one thing, and then the person is supposed to screw them. And my son decided to kill Darth Vader. And he began swinging at his head. And when that didn't work, he swung directly for the crotch.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I have video of my son. He was like, I will take care of the evil in the world. We'll make sure that we get this done.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think there's a picture of him somewhere that says, never pick this kid again. But we
How
had,
how old was he
oh,
when
he
this
was
happened?
little. He was little. Peter was the one who was working on it with him. So he had to have been like maybe 6, maybe 5. He was little because they just picked the little ones. If they're too
My
tall, they
God.
don't do it because then they can overpower Darth, and we don't want that. But
Oh my gosh.
I
That's
love that
hilarious.
advice about, for our kids standing still and making, because it gives them something to work on, to work
Yeah.
towards. But I also want to say, and I want to say this in the most careful way. First of all, if you're going to Universal in Hollywood, you should email me. That's
Yes.
that's what you should do. You should send me an email, Shannon at autism-live.com. If you're going in the next month, you should write to me, and I will give you some tips and tricks to help you with that. But I also want to say that I think that the cast members at Universal Hollywood are really, really helpful. If
Mm.
you Before you get in line, if you talk to them, there's a person who's always at the gate. If you talk to them and let them aware, but there's always a person other than the wand keeper. There's a person in the room, and if the show is over and you didn't get picked, talk to that person. Talk to that person and say, is there any way? Do it quickly and see if they can help you. But also email me, and I will see if there's anything that I can do. Okay, moving on. And it's such a great show, too. It's really worthwhile. What is the best way to prepare for the anxiety kids will have during travel? I feel like you addressed that a little bit in the beginning, but that's the other question that I had.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all about just preparation and rehearsing and all of that. But and every child is going to be different. And like I said before, I think it's about trying to just go through your agenda, your schedule, and figuring out kind of what are the different parts of this travel, this trip that we need to be cautious about or that we need to prepare for, and then going from there. Practice, I think, is the key to it. Shannon, last week we were talking a lot about the show, the rehearsal,
Yeah,
and I was actually talking with Nathan Fielder about it yesterday too, and I was saying I think the most interesting part of that is the whole concept of being able to rehearse pretty much anything,
yes,
right? And getting good at it, getting so good at it that you can do things that no one would imagine you could do. Like, he within a year learned and practiced how to fly and then flew a 737. So it's like everything is possible. We know this. One of my friends, one of my daughter's friends recently took I think 3 months and studied very hard and is now speaking Spanish fluently in 3 months,
it's
so
amazing.
I think that everything, depending on the number of hours we put into it,
Yes,
is possible, and that's for our kids. And I think when we get them ready for travel, it's really just trying to explore anything else, not just travel. We talk about this in regards to visiting a doctor's office or going to a busy park or going to a shopping center, whatever it is, just giving them the opportunity to have gradual exposure and repeated exposure
yeah,
just kind of takes the whole thing, makes the entire experience different, and makes it possible for the child to gradually acclimate and get used to it and be able to succeed when it's important for them to succeed.
yeah. We talk so much about opportunities to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's one of the great misunderstood things in life.
Yeah,
That, the more opportunities that you have to learn something, the greater the likelihood that you'll be successful.
right.
That thing that you were talking about, rehearsal. And, there was that study that came out a couple of years ago that was about the 5,000 hours. that
Mhm.
that they were researching if you want to be good and considered proficient at anything, whether it's
Mhm.
tennis or golf or playing the
Yeah.
violin, that you need a minimum of 5,000 hours of opportunities to learn, and that they need to be targeted opportunities, not just, like sitting
And
by
passing. Yeah.
yourself and playing, scratching the violin. You have to have somebody to help you, to see if what you're doing is effective, and change little things along the way. It's really the same thing with just the
Yeah.
principles of ABA. I
Yeah.
find I find one of the hardest things for new parents to understand is the level of intensity that's required to be successful.
Yeah.
And yet
Yeah.
we see it throughout our lives. We see it throughout anything that we want to learn. We would understand, in order to be proficient at the violin, you have to have lots of opportunities to,
Yeah.
and if you want to be proficient at learning another language, Spanish, Chinese, any.
English for our kids,
Yes.
like same thing. Like I'm glad that you said it that way because honestly, it's the same thing, and it goes back to what we try so hard to teach our parents in the beginning,
Yes.
which really has a lot to do with like this is a journey. It's going to take a few years, and it's going to be a lot of work,
Yeah.
and you have to be committed to it, and you have to be able to really focus and put the time in and do what you're supposed to do so that you have enough practice, enough hours. Very
Yes,
important.
enough hours to be successful. And that when we think about what we want for our kids, we want them to be successful, whether it's going on a trip or being able, to go to school and have friends and communicate with us when they come home to tell us what school was like. We need to give them
Exactly.
enough opportunity. And yet, I think sometimes we've gotten into this thing where we think what they all need is downtime,
Yeah.
instead of practicing.
Right.
And I think that the reality of it is that we need downtime.
Yes.
Our kids don't need downtime. We need downtime. But getting
Yeah.
back to the travel thing, the more you can rehearse, I always, when it's funny, because when we get around Halloween, and I know that it doesn't feel like it's Halloween, but for us preparing things, it's Halloween time in my head. And we get around Halloween, and everybody says, I don't understand why our kids have such a hard time with Halloween. And my head always goes, really? Because we
Yeah.
teach them a bunch of rules that were 364 days of the year. Like, you don't talk to strangers, you don't go up and ask people for candy, you don't eat a bunch of candy, right? You don't do all of these things. And then one day of the year, we go, oh, yeah, by the way, all those rules are off. Go have fun. And we're surprised when they're surprised, shocked, and upset. That they're
Yeah.
like, I don't understand what's going on. But by the time they're 12, they've had 11 Halloweens and they understand it a little bit better. But unfortunately, by the time they're 12, nobody really wants them to celebrate it, unless
Yeah.
they're coming to All Ghouls Gala when they're 21. But my point is, we need to give them opportunities to rehearse it, opportunities to practice. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Nathan was learning how to fly in a simulator.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said sometimes we need downtime.
Yes.
I think that is the thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I even now look back and I think I should have done more of X, Y, and Z with this child, with one of my kids, right? And it's just a matter of you do the best you can. A lot of times, we as parents are just exhausted. We're doing 6 million other things. But the truth is, life is about opportunities to learn. And this is why we have these really intense conversations with our families in the beginning, because families will come to us, as you know, Shannon, and say, I have this problem, and can you help me fix this problem? And we're like, certainly, of course we can, but it'll take time and effort
Yep.
and commitment to change. And so, and if we are able to do that, it's sometimes a fast change and sometimes it's incremental, slow change, but you have to stay committed, you have to stay dedicated, you have to keep practicing, you have to learn from these opportunities, you have to make these opportunities happen and then learn from them.
Absolutely. Julio has written in a question. They say, I'm looking for a Social Security lawyer in the San Gabriel Valley, Los Angeles County. Do you know anyone that would take the key recommend? And I want to say, I've had a lot of questions lately about different legal things that, like, we did a show on Monday about, and we included a talk about conservancy, and we had a lot of
Yes.
emails from people asking, so who do you recommend for a lawyer? And I'm really low on recommend. A lot of the lawyers I know have recently retired, and
Yeah.
so. But I find myself telling people there's an amazing organization that we've worked
Yes.
with before that's called Standout Advocates here in the Los Angeles County. I want to, if they don't know, then I don't know. They are the
There's
people.
another there's
Yeah.
another organization you used to also list that was lawyers that you could access. Do you remember? It was
Well, there've been
Bonnie had told us.
yeah, there've been several across the years, but a couple of them have retired or moved out of the Los Angeles area.
But
So
this is just the organization. It was some
well, there
organization
was
that was
Vet Zedek.
it wasn't just advocacy, it was legal advice.
Well,
Uh,
there's the Parent Hub for if you want legal advice for school. I really recommend that, although their budget has been cut severely in the recent cuts, but they're still there. I would still go to parentcenterhub.org, but they're going to be for school-oriented stuff. We always used to recommend people go to Bet Zedek. I think that's what you're talking about, which is a bunch of lawyers. It's a Jewish community service. But they took everyone and they helped with all of the conservancy and it was free. But right before the pandemic, they stopped offering that because they were so overwhelmed with
oh
parents.
wow.
I know, because there's so many parents. But I have to say, Standout Advocates, they're wonderful advocates and they are connected in this Los Angeles Valley. They will know somebody who's brilliant at that. And you can
And
find,
also,
yeah, go ahead.
I wonder if the regional centers have resources as well, or tell people where to go. Because regional centers obviously have a lot of social workers who can
Yeah.
help find those resources as well.
That might be, and I will definitely beat the bushes. We're going, Chris and I are going to a big event here in Los Angeles. We're going to the Ed Asner poker tournament on Saturday. I will ask everyone there who are the people, because I'm out. I'm out of lawyers at the moment. They've all
Yeah,
retired
yeah.
and moved and gone on. And there are different lawyers for Social Security than for IEPs and Conservancy.
Oh, yeah.
It's all different. But we're out of time. How did that
Yeah.
happen? But I appreciate you so much, Dr. Granpeesheh, and your
you
wonderful
so much.
wisdom. And we look forward to hopefully having you in studio next week. And we'll have to have a bottle of something to Chris in the studio.
Yes, absolutely.
The maiden voyage. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. You guys, we're back tomorrow with another great show on Autism Live. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Bye, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Bye, everyone.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.